Where did you get the idea for those thumbnails and Putin? But what role do you think content creators in this niche have?
Well, I'm no longer an Air Force captain with a side hustle on YouTube. I'm a YouTuber with a side hustle in the military. It's about providing value, and perspective. If you don't have the background or the knowledge to provide value to your viewers, then you can always gain it. If I can pass that information on, I think people do pick up on that and they appreciate it.
This is The Global Gambit.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Piotr, and this is The Global Gambit. Now, this is a show where we tend to focus on current events, but often I do like to dive into the creators behind the content, which I literally just coined, and I quite like it. But this conversation is about someone who, I have to admit, I know he might not be aware of it, pretty much encouraged me to get started on YouTube. He was very kind enough to answer my emails in early 2023 when I was thinking about plunging into the abyss that is YouTube content creation sometimes. And some of his reassurances and encouragements made me think, yeah, why not? 1 year on, I'm delighted to say that we have Jake Bro on the show. Jake is someone who I'm sure if you've followed anything to do with Ukraine and anything to do with military matters and just a source of good and legitimate information, he's here today, and I'm delighted to be speaking to him in part one about his journey on YouTube, how he got started, what it's been like for him, where he thinks he's going to take it, and a whole lot more. So I do encourage you to watch as much of the video as you can and save it and come back to it if you can't. And then we'll actually dive into more of the subject matter. So Ukraine itself, the war, Jake's personal perspectives, lessons he's learned, things like that. So do stay tuned if you haven't. And if you're from Jake's community, welcome. Delighted to have you here. I hope you enjoy the conversation. But Jake, thank you so much for joining the Global Gambit. Very first question I think I have for you is just, how did you get started on YouTube? It's always a bit of a scary, I think, sensation for us thinking about doing it. What made you decide to take the plunge?
I've always been obsessed with YouTube, going all the way back to its creation back in 2006. I mean, before Google bought YouTube and cleaned it up, there was copyrighted content everywhere. So I remember being in college back in 2007, binging every episode of Dragon Ball Z on YouTube because people were just uploading TV shows to the platform. There was no content moderation yet, and Google eventually cleaned it up. But I found this cast of YouTubers, 2008, 2009, that I've now been following for 10, 13 years. And I always had it in the back of my mind, I wish I could do that. I wish I could be a YouTuber. And back in 2012, when I was teaching English in South Korea, I actually did start a channel. And I made 2 videos. Oh. They exist somewhere on YouTube. I'm not going to direct anyone where they are. I don't even think I have the account login to delete them, but they do exist somewhere, and they're terrible. I was mortified. The white balance was off. The microphone was terrible. I think I crashed my PC laptop trying to edit it. This was back in 2012. So I kind of gave up on it. But fast forward to 2018, 2019, I was trying to figure out personal finance. This is something my parents never taught me, and I was following a YouTuber named Graham Stephan. He's huge now. He's got over 4 million subscribers, but I think it was May of 2019 that he made a video, how to get your first 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. At the time, I was serving in the Air Force. I was a nuclear and missile operations officer. I was living in Minot, North Dakota, kind of a small town near the Canadian border. And I just wanted a hobby, some kind of personal expression, something to do for fun. So in 2019, I started a YouTube channel. Didn't know what to talk about. That's kind of the number one problem that a lot of people have who want to get into it, but they just don't know what they'll talk about. And because I was trying to teach myself personal finance, I decided that could be my niche, personal finance, but concentrated on topics relating to military members, because that's what I was at the time. So I made a series of videos about the government TSP, which is the military's 401k. I talked about credit cards that are catered towards military members. I talked about how to get TSA pre-check for military people. I talked about the GI Bill, the VA loan. I just tried to make as many concentrated videos related to personal finance of the military. And eventually I just kept broadening it until I was talking about stocks and trading options. In 2000s, everything was kind of blowing up with GameStop, AMC, crypto, all that stuff. So I was doing pretty well. And I got to the point where I was making more money from YouTube than the Air Force. So I said to myself, well, I'm no longer an Air Force captain with a side hustle on YouTube. I'm a YouTuber with a side hustle in the military. So I decided to get out. And when the war broke out, that was the month I separated from active duty. February of 2022, I separated from the military and Russia invades Ukraine. At the time, I had about 80,000 subscribers. A new upload might get, a little over 10,000 views. And my CPM rate was very high because I was talking about personal finance and investing. Advertisers just pay top dollar to YouTubers for placement in those videos. Because of my backgrounds in the military, I made like a one-off video just talking about Russia's invasion of Ukraine. It got 3 to 4 times my normal views. So I kind of was going back and forth talking about my regular finance content and then giving updates on the war. But my channel exploded and I had, I doubled in size within a month or two. And I said, well, I'm no longer a finance YouTuber. I guess I'm a military blogger, a war commentator. That's never something I intended to be or planned to be, but I guess that was my destiny. That's what led me to the point where we are now.
Well, thank you for that rundown. I think it's really interesting being on someone who's at my stage and thinking about that. I'm on 8,000, so I'm a tenth of where you were before you exploded. So we're getting there. But interesting. So you found that your background.
Let me just add in the beginning. I made 60 original videos until I hit 1,000 subscribers. Like, if you want to start a YouTube channel, the algorithm's going to kill you. It's going to ignore you. You're going to be spending all this time and effort making really detailed videos, and then it's going to get no views. That's just how it is in the beginning, but it's a snowball effect. The bigger you get, the more YouTube trusts you, the more you get promoted, the faster you expand. It's a slow process in the beginning, but it does pay off if you stick to it.
But do you think that is the case with every niche? Because I'm more than well aware that personal finance broadly is the most profitable or monetizable, attractive for advertisers. I am interested in what's your thoughts on certain niches and their ability to see that response from the monetization, if that makes sense. Does are you risking not earning as much because you want to go into a certain niche?
Well, with YouTube's CPM rates, if you have American viewers, they're worth more than international viewers because most advertisers on the platform are American companies that want to market to Americans. Because I'm talking about Ukraine, I have a much more diverse international audience. So sure, the CPM rate is lower. Additionally, younger people with more disposable income, advertisers prefer marketing to those people. So if your audience is older, YouTube knows either by your login information or your watch history, basically about what gender you are, how old you are, other attributes. So when people leave comments saying, "Why am I seeing this ad on your video, Jake?" I don't control the ads. YouTube does. It's Google AdSense, and it's tailored specifically to you. So based on your watch history or your Google search history, that's why you're seeing that ad. Also, where you live in the world and who you are. So it's not me controlling the ads that appear in my videos.
And did there ever come a time in those earlier days when you felt that maybe it wasn't worth continuing? I've been there a couple of times where I was like, this is quite a lot of work. Maybe I should slow down on the content output. Maybe I should just give in altogether. I haven't had that feeling yet, actually. I'm happy about that. Did you ever have that wall feeling like when you're running?
For me, no, because I had no expectations. Because I was still a military officer and I was just doing this in my free time. It was my free time to waste. I had nothing to lose. It wasn't my full-time occupation yet. And the goal initially was, can I get monetized? Can I get to that 1,000 subscribers, 4,000 watch hours? If I start making $2 or $3 a day, hey, that'll cover, going to a nice restaurant once a month or whatever. That was my initial goal. And then it just kind of started getting bigger and bigger until I had an epiphany that I could do this full time, which is a dream come true, honestly. I get to wake up and talk about and do whatever I want all day. That's complete freedom for me. I don't want to, downplay the serious nature of the content that I talk about. I wish this war would end as soon as possible and I could go back to talking about finance or talk about other conflicts in the world. But I feel like I've filled a niche, filled a need. I get comments and emails all the time thanking me for promoting Ukraine, talking about Ukraine, supporting Ukraine. Related to you in your journey, it's about providing value, and perspective. If you don't have the background or the knowledge to provide value to your viewers, then you can always gain it. You can always teach yourself something new and then share it with your audience. People pick up on that. They love that. So I'm always trying to learn new things. And then if I can pass that information on, I think people do pick up on that and they appreciate it.
Yeah, I think that's really heartfelt. And for me, I look at it in two ways. I think that sometimes people can come, they have the idea of what they want to talk about, but they don't have any of the technical skills. And that's very much me. I was always interested in geopolitics and current events and felt that I could maybe make sense of complex issues, but I barely know how to use Premiere Pro. I've basically taught myself everything the past year. But then on the other side, you've got people who have all those technical capabilities. Like I'm thinking someone like Johnny Harris, right? He's got an incredible ability to leverage his media camera skills that he's learned via Vox and his other careers. But he also learned more about the subject matter, geopolitics and so on. So do you feel that one is better than the other? You come with the technical know-how already, or it doesn't make a difference?
I wish I could tell you that I had specific training to have technical competency in lighting, sound, video editing, but no, I'm all self-taught from YouTube. And I feel guilty sometimes because I was trying so hard those first 2 years to increase the quality, the sound, the lighting, the editing. I don't really do much editing, honestly, but I got to a point where everything was good enough. And I've been coasting really the last 2 years. Like I haven't changed my camera or changed my microphone or finally learned Final Cut Pro. I'm still using iMovie on my iMac, which is pretty amateurish. So I'll tell you that you don't need the technical skills. Like you don't need any of that special knowledge, but it's also, I'm not the most knowledgeable person. I'm not the most charismatic person. I don't have the best voice or face, but I am relentless. Like I work really hard and I don't get easily discouraged. When I see a troll comment or a nasty email or when just the news in general is very negative, I don't give up. I just keep going. I just keep making content. And there's a magic quality to just having that brute force on content creation platforms where you just keep going. You never get discouraged. So I'm incredibly grateful for the success that I've had. Is it because I have the best information? No. There are PhD professors and, Rhodes Scholars and ambassadors that know way more than I do. But they don't put themselves out there. They want to publish a book maybe once every 2 years. It's getting better. In my opinion, this is a completely different topic, but if you're an academic professor, your value to a university should not be how many published papers you have in these obscure journals that no one reads. It should be how many social media followers do you have and how much engagement are you getting educating the world. I think every academic that has expert knowledge in a specific field should be doing what Neil deGrasse Tyson does. Put yourself out there, try and connect with people, provide information for free to add value to the world. You're not doing the world any favors, saving all of your specific knowledge and research for these obscure academic journals that no one reads.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's a huge disconnect between particular types of academia as well as academia in general. And it's one of the things that I've sort of I think subconsciously felt is inspiring me to do that, which is to be that connector between, because I do enjoy nerdy academic journals occasionally, like abstract theoretical things like how a nation emerges or something, but they do such a bad job. And, I'm pretty active on X as I am here. And, people follow me from all sorts of universities. And I'm like, I have barely the qualifications this person who's just followed me does. But because I've built that establishment partially on X, they follow me, engage on me. I'm very curious, actually. One of my biggest questions for you that I always wanted to ask you in the run up for our chat was, you have a very particular style, as you say. Where did you get the idea for those thumbnails with Putin? Because they are probably, well, not only my favorite part, but one of the most memorable. So
I've been using the same 30 photographs or 15, 20 photographs of Putin. And then I change the bold text and I change the speech bubble. And then I have the title. So it's really a one frame comic. And I can use the bold text, the speech bubble, and the title to maybe tell a story or a joke. And sometimes they land, sometimes they don't. Sometimes maybe I was trying something and nobody got it because I didn't see any comments about what I was referring to. But it's my style of humor. And you're asking, where did I develop that? And I used to be an English teacher in South Korea. That's what I did after college. And I would make PowerPoint presentations for my students in which I would put speech bubbles on cartoon characters. So I would have a very simple dialogue on a PowerPoint, and then my students would practice that dialogue, and I would use cute or funny cartoon characters saying, the English grammar or vocabulary they needed to practice, but I would try and make it fun. I try and make it interesting. So I think that's where I came up with that idea.
Okay. And as the war has progressed, how has your channel evolved? How have you evolved it as the war has evolved? And what steps have you taken to improve it, change it?
Well, that's a difficult question because on self-reflection, I'm sure there are things that I have done, but I mean, if you go back and watch a video I made 20 months ago, I'm more or less doing the same formats. I'm just pulling information that I've aggregated from news sites and social media. And there's a lot of junk out there. So I view myself as basically an aggregator or a screener of information, where I say this doesn't matter to the big picture of the war. So I try to concentrate it. And let's be honest, I'm looking for positive stories to give people hope that Ukraine will win this war. It's the news. I mean, I don't think it needs to be improved upon that much. I just try to have the best stories, and I try and put it in a flowing pattern where it kind of can tell a story of what happened over the last 48 hours.
And why do you think that there is such a appetite for this? Because people don't have enough time to sift through all the news there, find the stories that they might not otherwise know are there, or because it's just nice to be able to come to.
They can't get this information from the mainstream news. Okay. When you talk about the major publications and CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, whatever, corporate media flat out doesn't want to talk about this war anymore because it doesn't get the engagement. It doesn't get the clicks or the views. As far as when you think about the audience they're trying to market to through mass media, when you have a remote control and you can just flip the channel to the Home Shopping Network or whatever, if the war in Ukraine comes on, really high engagement those first couple months, corporate media was pushing the humanitarian stories like crazy, but people get fatigued. People who are not emotionally invested in this war, and if it comes on the news channel for corporate media, they're just going to flip the channel. So my success is because there are people who care and they're emotionally invested in this war, and frankly, they can see the big picture. Maybe they're fans of history and they know the danger that is around the corner if we don't support Ukraine today. So those are the people. I guess you could call me alternative news, alternative media. You have to go on YouTube to get this information daily. You're not going to get it from established media. People, because I'm just an ordinary guy, I'm viewed as more trustworthy or authentic than just some talking head in a nice suit who pops up on the local TV station. Do you feel the same way? Like, do you interpret it that way?
It's a good question. I mean, I'm very self-conscious now to the fact that we are both two talking heads, though. I think that it depends really on the platform, because I've largely spent much of my time on X or Clubhouse. So when the war first began, I was running a 24/7 hour room on Clubhouse. We raised about 50,000+ or something. We were featured in a few mainstream media outlets, and it was live because it was social audio, a bit like X Spaces, and people would come in on the ground. We heard rockets in the background, and we managed to get people out of the country. So it was very powerful, but I don't have as much experience with YouTube. So I'm trying to diversify and expand into a new format, which is challenging my personal sense of self. I'm yet to break through to a sort of 50,000 or 100,000 where I'm like, okay, I'm established. I'm still quite small and got that slight insecurity that will I actually grow or find the audience who appreciates the way I approach things. So I think yes, largely speaking, it's a challenging one. It does lead me to the sort of the broader question then. So you've partially answered it, but what place do you think content creators have in not necessarily just content creations generally, because you've focused on a niche area of sensitive issues, conflict, geopolitics, military matters, and that's not exactly YouTube's favorite topic. So how do you, one, navigate that, but what role do you think content creators in this niche have in influencing the way we digest these sorts of issues?
First comment about YouTube. When we talk about the streaming wars, Netflix, Disney Plus, HBO Max, whatever, YouTube puts out and generates more content for streaming than every other streaming platform combined. Not all of it's great, but it's there. So when we talk about streaming platforms, YouTube is the biggest by miles and miles and miles. Something like every hour more content is uploaded than the three major broadcast networks is generated in the last 70 years combined. So the scale of this platform is enormous. And as far as content creators, this is a new thing as far as the last 10 years or so, where anyone can participate. The threshold for having an iPhone and just filming yourself talking, it just keeps getting lower and lower every year. I can't imagine it getting any simpler than it is today. As far as if you have a message or an idea or a joke or something you want to share with the world, it's so easy today. And I think more people are accepting this. This is the new normal. For children growing up today, getting their information from YouTube or TikTok or whatever is more natural, more comfortable, more trustworthy than flipping on the television and trying to watch ABC or CBS or NBC or something. So this is a paradigm shift that we're all living through. And within 10 or 20 years, no one will question it. The largest YouTubers on the platform with audiences of millions and millions of people will be the most trustworthy journalists, if you want to call them that. I don't use the term journalist because I'm not the primary source on any of my information. I wish I was, but I don't have the contacts, connections. I'm not on the ground in Ukraine. So I call myself more of a commentator or an aggregator of information, but I try to vet things and make sure that everything that I say is truthful for my audience.
Yeah, it's a bit like me. I don't really like using the term influencer. I prefer personality. Maybe you could call yourself a media personality or a social media personality. But I do have another question regarding disinformation and combating it, but I'm going to save that for the second segment so that people, a little bit of a teaser. And I guess the last question I have for you, Jake, in part one is really, what is the future? Where do you want to take the channel in 24? Or you largely just want to continue what you're doing and it's dependent on the situation in Ukraine?
I feel like I'm part of a community and I'm providing a service. This is the least I can do to support Ukraine, is keep making these videos every other day. And I've got a good rhythm. I work a lot, but I still have a very good personal life balance. And my physical health is great. My mental health is great. I'm going to go as long as it takes for Russia to lose this war. So as long as it takes, that's the sole topic that I'm going to be focused with on my channel. If the Putin regime miraculously collapses and Russian forces pull back to their own country, and there's nothing significant to talk about in the aftermath of that, then I will happily go back to talking about trading options, or I could just shift and talk about other conflicts in the world, give my unique perspective. I lived in South Korea for 6 years. There's a lot that I would like to say about what I learned about North Korea. It's one of the most dystopian societies in the world. Adjacent to that is China, which marginally is better, but not by far. I could make lots of videos talking about China. There's Iran. There's our allies like Saudi Arabia and Turkey. But no, there's no shortage of conflicts in the world in which I feel like I could give my perspective and add value to people who subscribe to my channel.
And on that note, everybody, if you haven't already, subscribe to Jake's channel. Thank you very much, Jake. I really like to know a bit more about the person behind the camera, and you've given me a lot of food for thought, and I think several other people. But I look forward to having our next chat. Until then, everyone, though, take care.